Hi everyone, let's go through the extra help video for Learning Target 223 for standard form. And we are on page 28 in the packet. If you do not have your packet, you can go ahead and sketch 2 coordinate planes on your paper so that you can sketch along with us. So I did make an error, but then instead of reprinting this, I'm just going to start with this. So I made a little note to myself that this method is only for when we have equations that are not in y equals mx plus b form. So if you have y equals mx plus b, you know how to do the begin with b and move with m, so just do that instead. But if you don't have that, then you'll want to do this method. So plug in 0 for x and then plug in 0 for y. Pretty simple. If you look at this, so we're going to do 2 examples. One example is one that we didn't get to go through in the original video because it's just kind of a weird example where we only have one or the other. If you only have one variable, you can actually do a little bit less work and think about, it's going to basically be, your 2 choices are either a horizontal line or a vertical line if you're missing one of the variables. And so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out which one. And so this one only has a y value. And that means that y is always going to be the same thing. If y is always the same thing, you can see this is the y-axis, then we can figure out what number that will be, and it will be a horizontal line, so that y is the same no matter what x is. In order to find out what the y value is, all we have to do is get y by itself. So we can just divide by 4 and get y equals 2.5. And so on the y-axis, I can go up to 2.5 and put a dot. And what this means, since there's no x value, there's nothing on this x-axis, it means y is always going to be 2.5. So we want to take our straight edge, mine is my tissue box because it was closest to me, and we are going to line it up right on that dot so I can draw a horizontal line all the way across my graph. And so you can see no matter what my x value is, if I choose x is 0, I go up, it's 2.5. If I choose x is 8, I go up, it's 2.5. X is -5, I go up, it's 2.5. So if you only have one variable, then you can go ahead and do it this way, where it's just going to be, if it's a y, it's going to be a horizontal line because the y is the same the whole time. If it said like 4x equals 10, that would mean the x value is 2.5 the whole time, so it's a vertical line. So just kind of a weird example we didn't get to go through that I wanted to mention. But now let's go through one that looks how the examples did. So we have an x and a y, and so what we're going to do is we are going to plug in 0 to find our x-intercept and plug in 0 to find our y-intercept. For our x-intercept, I need to get rid of y, so we're going to plug in 0 for y. The nice thing about 0, like multiplying by 0, is that anything times 0 cancels. So that whole part goes away, and you're left with -3x equals 14. Then we're going to want to divide, and I get x equals, I don't know what 14 divided by -3 is, so I'm going to use my calculator. We get -4.6 repeating. So this is my x-intercept. And so on my x-axis, I'm going to go to -4.6, or where I think it is. So -1, 2, 3, 4, and then about just past halfway is my x-intercept. Now I'm going to do the same exact process with my y-intercept. So I have to get rid of x by plugging in 0. I have seen some students do it this way, and sometimes I do it this way as well. If we know we're going to plug in 0 for the x, we know that just goes away because anything times 0 is 0. So I've seen students use their finger and just cover this up. And then if you look at what's left, you can see that you would just have to divide by -2 to solve that. And so if that works better for you, then you can do that. If not, you can still plug in 0 and actually solve. Because when we do that, this cancels, We bring that down to get negative 2y equals 14. And we end up doing the same steps you would have if you just covered it up with your finger and went from there. So y is negative 7. Plot that on the y-axis. Once you have your two dots, you want to use anything that is straight, that has a straight edge, and line up those dots. And we're going to go all the way through our graph to give our line. So you can see our line right there. So this method, it doesn't really matter which order you do this in, but you basically just have to plug in 0 for x and then 0 for y and plot those on the graph. Make sure you're very careful with negatives and you're very careful with putting the dot in the correct spot. So either on the y-axis for the y and the x-axis for the x. I hope this helped.